No handshakes, no group photos. This really was an extraordinary meeting of the group of 19 nations and the European Union, known as the G20. The global pandemic has brought developed and emerging economies to a near standstill, and their representatives are trying to figure out how to handle it. A few hours earlier, some of the energy ministers agreed on a record 10 million barrel cut in oil production. That was despite Mexico's reluctance to comply. But the largest ever reduction in production by the OPEC Plus alliance was not enough, and they needed more to be done by the G20. It did decide to rally behind the cuts by OPEC Plus and the initial agreement to wipe out 15 million barrels from global oil production. As high as that number may sound, it wouldn't be enough to completely address issues of excessive global supply. Oil traders say the fall in oil demand could be as high as 30 million barrels a day. That's about a third of global production.
This deal is 10 to 15 million barrels a day. So it only goes part of the way to addressing that massive demand shock. We're continuing to see oversupply, and that's going to drive prices likely downwards as inventories continue to build. It is significant in the sense that Saudi Arabia and a few of the Gulf monarchies are changing their strategy to a certain degree. But much of what's happening here, as I said, is market cuts. This was going to happen anyway, especially in the United States.
The World Bank estimates economies in the Middle East North Africa region could lose $116 billion from their GDP this year due to the coronavirus pandemic and collapsing oil demand. Economists fear that would be devastating for investment needed in basic services such as healthcare and for economic recovery. The scramble to fix the collapse in oil prices highlighted a miscalculation by Russia and Saudi Arabia, who had controversially increased their output. And the US, being the world's largest producer, has tried to control the damage. After phone calls with world leaders, President Trump, in an unprecedented move, decided to cut production to help out Mexico.
The OPEC nations have agreed to a different limit, reduction of about 23%. So what I thought I would do, and I don't know that it's going to be accepted, we'll find out. The United States will help Mexico along, and they'll reimburse us sometime at a later date when they're prepared to do so. And we had a great conversation, but we'll find out how that all works out. As you know, they're trying to get rid of the glut of oil. There's a tremendous glut of oil, and we don't want anything to hurt our incredible industry. We're actually the largest producer in the world now, so we don't want anything to hurt those jobs.
It's not the first time global powers, including the US and Saudi Arabia, have reached an agreement. But this time, the markets will decide whether the reduction of millions of barrels in oil output will be enough to secure some of the world's leading economies. Osama bin Javaid, Al Jazeera.